Welcome back to Jerusalem Dateline. A dangerous new alliance is forming in the Middle East. Russia has joined forces with Iran, Hezbollah, and Bashar al-Assad in Syria. But controlling Syria may only be the beginning of their plans. Eric Steckelbeck takes a closer look at this alliance and the man at the center of it.
It's a nightmare scenario, a military powerhouse with a massive nuclear arsenal, openly aligning itself with Islamic terrorists who are hostile to America and Israel. That's exactly the situation today in Syria, as the Russian military coordinates with the world's #1 state sponsor of terror, Iran, and its proxy Hezbollah. The Russian-Iranian alliance is helping to prop up the regime of Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad. He'd been on the ropes, threatened on all sides by ISIS, al-Qaeda, and Syrian rebel groups. And then the Russian bear stepped in. Russia began airstrikes in Syria on behalf of the Assad regime in late September, after a steady military buildup. The buildup began shortly after an Iranian general named Qasem Soleimani paid a visit to Moscow in July. It was no coincidence. Although he largely avoids the limelight, Soleimani has been called the most powerful operative in the Middle East today.
In general terms, he's a uniformed Osama bin Laden. He's anti-U.S. He is able to travel to Middle East and North Africa and basically funding and directing Iranian proxy groups like Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis, and those are just the ones that start with an H.
Michael Pregent is executive director of Veterans Against the Iran Deal. He served as an intelligence advisor to General David Petraeus in Iraq, where he saw Soleimani's handiwork up close. Talk about, in specific, the kind of attacks that Soleimani and the Iranians helped carry out against U.S. troops in Iraq.
Okay, well, there were the explosively formed penetrators. That was a munition that the Iranians helped Shia militias build. They brought them to Iran, trained them on how to use it, and actually set them up in Iraq and directed their attacks against U.S. forces.
U.S. officials believe those Iranian-supplied weapons led to the deaths of at least 500 American soldiers in Iraq. As leader of the elite Quds Force wing of Iran's Revolutionary Guards Corps, Soleimani played a central role.
Soleimani is responsible for Quds Force external operations. He has the Iraq portfolio, he has the Syria portfolio. He's responsible for keeping Assad in power for 4 years. He has a hand in Assad in the death of 200,000 Syrians.
Israel, however, is Soleimani's ultimate target.
The Quds Force, Quds means Jerusalem. The Quds Force is an external force hell-bent on taking Jerusalem back. That's their long-term strategic goal.
In pursuit of that goal, Iran is attempting to establish a foothold in Syria's Golan Heights, along Israel's border. In January 2015, an Israeli helicopter strike killed a group of top Hezbollah operatives near the Golan border, along with an Iranian brigadier general. That setback didn't deter Iran's long-term plans. Last month, Soleimani personally visited the Golan to rally Syrian and Hezbollah troops there.
Qasem Soleimani has become much more public in his profile. Lots of pictures of him standing alongside Iraqi Shia militants in Iraq, in Syria. He's taken a very public role.
Likewise, Iran is stepping up its role in Syria's civil war. Some 2,000 Iranian and Iranian-backed fighters are now in Syria battling to prop up the Assad regime. They're joined by thousands of Hezbollah fighters and supported by a daily barrage of Russian airstrikes against anti-Assad targets. In addition, Russia, Iran, the Assad regime, and Iraq are now all reportedly sharing intelligence. An emergency visit by Qasem Soleimani to Moscow in July reportedly sealed the deal for Russian involvement in Syria. It was a visit made in direct violation of UN sanctions against the Quds Force leader.
When we say that sanctions are still on Soleimani, they're not, because the supreme leader will give Soleimani as much money as Soleimani needs to continue Iran's export of terrorism. He answers directly to the supreme leader. Qasem Soleimani answers directly to Khamenei, and that's the problem. We don't understand that.
As for Russia, its presence in the Middle East and its growing alliance with Iran raises serious questions for Israel, such as how will Russia react to a potential war between Israel and Hezbollah, or an Israeli strike against Iran's nuclear facilities? The answers remain unclear. Eric Stackelbeck, CBN News, Washington.